We have some breaking news just into our newsroom. According to a statement from the Supreme Court, Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died this evening surrounded by her family at her home in Washington, D.C. due to complications of metastatic pancreatic cancer. She was 87 years old. We'll, of course, have much more on her life in just a moment. But first, our Juju Chang has more on the life of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a force to be reckoned with.
All I ask of our brethren is that they take their feet off our necks.
Barely 5 feet tall, but a liberal giant. Only the second female justice named on the Supreme Court, serving there for more than a quarter century. Her path to the highest court in the land was not easy. As one of the few women at Harvard Law School, she faced discrimination after graduating from Columbia in the 50s. Her tenaciousness in the classroom highlighted in the Oscar-nominated documentary on Ginsburg titled RBG, produced by journalists Julie Cohen and Betsy West.
She was one of 9 women in a class of 500. She was tied for first in her class. And the big New York City law firms just weren't hiring women.
Not a law firm in the entire city of New York bid for my employment.
Charging forward, she became a beloved law professor at Rutgers and worked as a lawyer for the ACLU. She mapped out a legal strategy to file lawsuits against gender bias in employment, housing, and government benefits.
Men and women are persons of equal dignity, and they should count equally before the law.
You won't settle for putting Susan B. Anthony on the new dollar.
When they would say things like this, how did you respond?
Well, never in anger, as my mother told me. That would have been self-defeating. Always as an opportunity to teach. I did see myself as kind of a kindergarten teacher in those days because the judges didn't think sex discrimination existed. Well, one of the things I tried to plant in their minds was think about how you would like the world to be for your daughters and granddaughters.
She won 5 landmark cases, which she argued on behalf of women in front of an all-male bench long before she sat on it. Ginsburg went on to serve as an appeals court judge in the nation's capital until that life-changing nomination by President Bill Clinton in 1993.
I am proud to nominate for Associate Justice of the Supreme Court Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
That announcement may never have happened had it not been for the intense lobbying effort by a staunch feminist, her husband, Marty Ginsburg.
He really felt she was brilliant and she deserved it and it would be good for the country.
And at her confirmation hearing, chaired by then-Senator Joe Biden, the nominee did not shy away from her feminism, spotlighting contentious topics like abortion rights.
This is something central to a woman's life, to her dignity. It's a decision that she must make.
The Senate confirmed her in a sweeping 96-3 vote. She began quickly making her mark on historic cases. She's perhaps best known for a decision in 1996 that struck down a male-only admissions policy at the Virginia Military Institute, opening the door for women to study there.
It's Justice Ginsburg writing an opinion that builds on the foundations that lawyer Ruth Bader Ginsburg essentially helped to lay.
I know that there were some people who did not react well to the change, and my response to this was, wait and see. You will be proud of the women who become graduates of the MI.
And in a landmark case on employment discrimination in 2007, Ginsburg wrote a powerful dissent that prompted Congress to amend the laws. Named for the woman who filed the claim, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act became one of the first pieces of legislation signed into law by President Barack Obama. While on the Supreme Court, Justice Ginsburg was a consistently liberal voice on issues like abortion, voting rights, and the separation of church and state. Off the bench, she was the first Supreme Court justice to perform a same-sex marriage ceremony. Her tenure was not without controversy, breaking tradition for a justice when Ginsburg spoke out against then-candidate Donald Trump, including to the New York Times, calling him a, quote, faker, saying, "I can't imagine what the country would be with Donald Trump as our president." Ginsburg later adding that her comments were, quote, ill-advised, and that she regretted making them. But throughout it all, Justice Ginsburg won the respect of many conservatives with her grasp of the law and her carefully crafted opinion. And as the court shifted to the right, her scathing dissents elevated her to a pop culture icon, inspiring legions of young fans and feminists to emulate her famous outspokenness
25, 24, 23.
and her fitness routines, earning her the hip-hop-inspired nickname Notorious B.I.G.
Many varieties.
Her fame burnished by her fashion statements, her distinctive collars becoming her calling card.
And this is what I use for announcing majority opinion. This one is for dissenting opinion.
Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg helped focus our country on its most basic values of justice and equality, leaving a legacy of majority opinions and powerful dissents for generations to come.
Our thanks to Juju, and now let's bring in Devin Dwyer. Devin, you got a chance to know beyond the black robe, Ruth Bader Ginsburg as a person. Give us a sense of who she is and what she was like.
Hey, Lindsay, yeah, I met Ruth Bader Ginsburg in her chambers just about a year ago. She was battling a cold that day. It was before this latest recurrence of cancer, and I was struck by her humility, her absolute focus, dedication to the law. And, you know, despite the caricatures of her out there, the Hollywood portrayals, she's, of course, been in some movies, portrayed in movies of late, I found her to be an incredibly serious, thoughtful, and constructive person. And that's what we're hearing tonight from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, who, of course, was appointed by a Republican president. He says Ginsburg was a jurist of historic stature, a cherished colleague, and says that today the court mourns, but with confidence, the court will remember her as we knew her, a tireless and resolute champion of justice. Lindsay.
And we saw her in that piece. She was often known for working out every day, that rigorous exercise. She had pancreatic cancer before, seemed to have beat it, and then had this recurrence again. Talk to us about the strength that she exuded and her ability to overcome a number of health ailments.
She came to symbolize just unbelievable strength, Lindsay, particularly for women in a man's world. She was the second woman appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court, served there for over a quarter century. And so this passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg is not just the loss of a legal luminary and a public servant for all that time, but of course this is a pop culture icon, a woman that captured our imagination by her ability to defy death 4 times and serve valiantly to the very end. In fact, just last term, she participated in the court business, you remember, from the hospital room as she was fighting an infection, asking questions over the phone. And so that strength and determination felt by so many women and minorities fighting for equality was her cause, and she sure was relentless and undaunted in that way.
You know, there's a quote that she said, "Women will only have true equality when men share with them the responsibility of bringing up the next generation." As much as she was a pioneer in her own right, her husband really was such a strong advocate as well.
Yeah, it was a partnership in marriage, and boy, did she miss Marty Ginsburg, who passed away many years ago from cancer himself. He was a chef. Their marriage was a partnership, and it was a modern marriage, one she was so proud of. In fact, in our meetings, she talked regularly of Marty as she knew him, and and in that way, she used her partnership with her husband to create some of the legal arguments. Lindsay, I mean, when she was before the Supreme Court herself, she made a targeted appeal not just for women's rights, but for men's rights on the basis of sex. Was very much an argument. She wanted it to be equal for both sides. One of her famous cases took up the cause of a widower who was struggling with Social Security, and so certainly Marty she's together with Marty tonight.
You know, it's certainly so early, Devin, to even begin to talk about it, but certainly a lot of people are going to be asking what's next, and with the election less than 2 months away, what does this mean as far as President Trump being able to possibly push through another nominee?
Well, this, in many ways, Lindsay, was her worst nightmare. She never herself wanted to leave it to a Republican president, much less Donald Trump, to name her replacement. And tonight, Democrats are experiencing a nightmare they had hoped to avoid. There has never been, an appointment and confirmation of a Supreme Court justice this late in the game with a divided Congress like we have right now. So Republicans are vowing to do it. President Donald Trump has said openly at some of his campaign rallies that he would nominate someone and put them forward. So we are all braced for a pitched political battle, but for the next few days or so, it's worth keeping the focus on a legendary justice who members on both sides of the aisle tonight are remembering.
ABC's Devin Dwyer, our thanks to you. We'll, of course, have much more on the death and passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg throughout the night. Please stand by while we join the rest of the ABC News television network.